and so on. So by this kind of analysis, you just believe me for the time being, for this talk, we develop some kind of classifier which actually look into somebody's social media profile and can predict with certain accuracy what kind of personality, what kind of values, and what kind of dark triad orientation they have. Okay. This is yet another lexicon. Let's forget about that. Okay. So these are kind of performances of all these classifiers. Personality 0.80, values 0.81, and dark triad 0.73. You can understand possibly this is the most toughest one because it also has this amount of data. And these are kind of F-score for each classes and so on. Now, with this, we have to find out how hate speech spread. So we started building hate speech classifier, which is a kind of stack classifier. We have 3 layers, parallel layers, and then we have flat layers. Let's say that the accuracy of that hate speech classifier as of now is around 80%, and which can classify speeches into these 3 categories: sexist, racist, and neither. Okay. So neither means it's not hate speech. Now we have yet another classifier we call aggression classifier, which is a kind of capsule net test. So which try to actually, given a hate speech, try to say, okay, is it overtly aggressive or covertly aggressive? So how much aggression we have. Okay. So first layer is detection of hate speech, and which category. Second layer is how much aggressive this is using capsule net. We have 0.73 score here for the aggression. Now, at this point, we started understanding, okay, fine, can you find a relation? First, who posts hate speech and who spread it? So who posts, when we analyze the gold standard data, I'm not saying we applied or classified something else. So when we look at the gold standard data, we collected a lot of gold standard data available. So we found typically 70% hate speech comes from, originated from people who are having dark triad orientation. Largely. And that's an interesting finding. I'm not saying he who reshared it, initiated, who created this is typically coming from dark triad oriented people. And then also, we started looking at kind of, association between dark triad and kind of hate speech. Sexist, very aggressive, sexist, non-aggressive, racist, aggressive, and so on. So we have, you can see the probability distribution here, based on a very large scale data analysis. So this is a kind of finding from a data. Now our next target would be, can we apply this learning to predict the hate speech diffusion? Now on next, we started asking, okay, fine, 70% people are somehow dark triad oriented, fantastic, but what about 30%? The rest 30%. So for the rest 30%, we started analyzing their personalities and values. So their personalities and values, we found this is the kind of distribution, what are the kind of people who actually post a hate speech. For example, tradition-oriented, power-oriented, achievement-oriented, and so on. This is a kind of, okay, my time is over. So I can quickly, possibly go here for the time being. So then, using this information, using note to fake and sentence encoder. Note to fake is a kind of topology. Sentence encoder is a kind of content what people are talking about. And finally, we have a behavior encoder, which is actually encode all this behavior into some vector. We have shown that in our paper that the hate speech diffusion is becoming much, much better than the normal technique, only topology-based technique. So because now the system is learning who is actually posting hate speech and what is the probability of the next person commenting on it or forwarding it to the next level. So very quickly, we have developed yet another module called empathy. I'll end up here possibly. Okay. So empathy is yet another societal trait. So it's a kind of trait when people post something positive or negative, how the neighboring people react to that. That's called empathy. So we build another classifier, another kind of rule which understand how people will be impacted towards some positivity and negativity. And we added one more layer to our hate speech prediction, And we got now 89, F score is around 85. So that's the current system we have for the hate speech diffusion. So possibly with this I can stop here because time is over.
Questions?
Yes.
So, a lot of the deception has been happening through chatbot, through bots, actually not really real users. So, what does it mean to have the personality of the bot?
Yeah.
I mean, kind of to what extent this, applies to the real world, and what is the extension that, what percentage of users are using? We're talking about 30% not really expressing this dark any of those features in the dark clear, but I mean, what are all the bots?
Yeah. So, thanks, a nice question. So, according to Twitter statistics, 12 to 15% are bots. So, bot detection and botnet detection get another unsolved problem. We did not go into that, but yes, definitely we can look into that.
So you mentioned that 70% of the initiators have some, dark triad. So, what is the threshold that you use for some, dark triad?
Sorry, what is that?
What content should I have of Machiavellianism, narcissism, and whatever third component? How much I should have to be called somebody with some dark triad?
Okay, so that's an interesting question. So we design a classifier which is certain, accurate. So so your wording pattern, your speech act pattern, how you use speech act, and the sequence of speech act, etc. actually combine and go into the classifier and predict what is the possible.
My question is, what is the threshold above which you will call me I am somebody with dark triad?
There is no such threshold. So so when we collect data, we give questionnaire to people, and then we get the answer. We calculate the dark triad orientation.
Right. So you said 70% of the initiators have some dark triad orientation.
Yes.
What is that sum you are using?
Okay, some, when I say sum, so there are 3 dimensions, right?
Yes.
So they are at least true in some dimension. Either they're Machiavellian, they're narcissist, or psychopath.
Oh, okay. So 2 out of 3 they need to
at
have.
least 1 out of 3.
Oh, 1 out of 3.
At least 1.
Okay.
Yeah.
So following up from that, how exactly do you quantify if they are a narcissist or other things? How do you know, like who decides that?
No, who decide? Psychologists decide. Don't take me wrong. I'm a computer scientist in all possible ways. So our job is to look at the content and try to classify things. Okay, so like this. So when we collected data, we give the questionnaire developed by psychologists, and there are certain defined methods that we can calculate the scores, and then we also get the data. And from the data, we started analyzing the content, the word distribution and immeracy, and senses, sensicron, speech act pattern, and various other things. And then we created the classifier.
Thank you, Dr. Amitava. It was a very interesting talk. I now request Dr. Shah to present him with a token of appreciation. Our next speaker is Dr. Amir Javed. He will be joining us over Skype. He recently got his PhD from Cardiff University, where he also received his MSc degree in Information Security and Privacy. He is currently a lecturer at Cardiff University and has worked on a number of research projects as a research associate in cybersecurity analytics in Cardiff. He'll be talking about identifying malicious URLs in social media.
Hello, hi, can you guys hear me? Can you, hi, sorry my video is not working properly, so my voice would be there, but can you see the screen? If it's, yeah?
Yes, we can see that.
You can see the screen, right? Right. So my name is Amir. I'm a lecturer at College University. So I'll give you a small presentation about how to make predictive models to identify tweets that contain malicious URLs, and also to identify key features that help in propagating these tweets. Key features by what I mean is like social and content and driven features such as emotion and sentiment. So to begin with, why specifically we choose to look at Twitter? The Twitter at present has become a go-to place for has become a go-to place to get updates on entertainment, news, and anything that's interesting. People are going to Twitter. It currently has roughly around 300 million active users. And the other interesting thing is all it has been in the past been prone to cyber attacks such as pornographic pages injection for Trojan. There was a Kufez virus modification bomb that was injected on Twitter. A lot of distributed service attacks happened. So, but for my particular purpose, for my research, I was interested in drive-by download attacks. So, what specifically is a drive-by download attack? Is what happens whenever a user visits a website, there's a malicious code injected into the web page itself, and while you're visiting it, it gets executed on your machine. And once it's been executed, it starts looking for vulnerabilities in your system. If it finds a vulnerability, it exploits that and infects your system. So how does that take place with Twitter itself? So what an adversary or an attacker would be doing is it would be logging onto Twitter to get a list of all those trending topics that are attracting a lot of attention. Why specifically? Because these are the topics that has maximum number of users. Then create a clickbait or a tweet, which would be something like hashtag trending topic. This tweet and add some user mentions to it and inject this malicious URL to the tweet itself. So the idea of the adversary is to create a clickbait to make you interested enough to click on the URL. Another thing about Twitter is because it's 280 character restriction, the long URL that is there automatically gets shortened into an 8-bit URL. So when you look at the tweet itself, there's absolutely no idea what the endpoint would be looking at. So when a user clicks on it, he gets redirected from malicious web page, and the malicious script itself starts getting put into the machine itself and starts infecting the system. But you would have no idea that because since you didn't click on anything, you didn't download anything, but your system starts getting infected by it. So for our particular research, looking at are there any key indicators or attributes in terms of social media attributes such as friend followers, location, or and content-driven features that could help in identify these accounts that are driving, that are spreading malware, and can these features be used to build predictive models that we can just predict by looking at the tweet itself? Can we predict whether this URL is pointing to a malicious URL or not? The other aspect that we will look at to see whenever a URL is being opened, what are the system-driven attributes that are there? What was the memory? What was the memory usage? What was the network activity? What was file written network? And can these features again be used to build a predictive model? The other aspect of the research that we were looking at was to see whether are there any content or social-driven features that aid in propagation of these malware. The propagation over here is like the tweetability of a tweet. How often, if a certain social features are present, can it be retweeted more? So, for our experimental purpose, we look at 7 different data sets which were collected specifically on sporting events. We looked at specifically sporting events because these events that would driven a lot of users. So we looked at Super Bowl events. We looked at Olympics. We we were two football events, which was the FIFA World Cup, and then we was the European Championship League. We also captured tweets around the Cricket World Cup. And then what we did was, so we extracted the URL that was presented in the tweet itself, passed it into high interaction honeypot. So what the purpose of the honeypot over here was to go and visit these URLs that was embedded into URL and see what happens when you're visiting these websites. Are there any system changes taking place or not? What the honeypot does is, it looks in terms of has there any changes made in the files, has there any changes made in the registry, or has there any changes made in the processes. So you create certain exclusion lists, certain rules. If those rules are violated, then the capture honeypot says this file is malicious. Otherwise, it says it's denied. So while we're configuring the honeypot itself, we give it a specific amount of time for it to observe each URL. For our experimental purpose, we have given roughly around 10 minutes. So whenever URL visits it observes the entire system activity for 10 minutes and see if any file changes have been made. So for example, a file changes would be, say, if while visiting a website, a system32 file, any file in the system32 folder is being modified, then you certainly know this kind of an activity should not be happening while visiting websites. So this website is trying to exploit a vulnerability or carrying an attack on your system. So this definitely is pointing to a malicious web server. However, if nothing out of the ordinary happens to visiting the website, it will classify as a denying website. Once you have a labeled data set with what is malicious URLs, what is denying URL, so we found that for each event, roughly around 10 to 12% of URLs that we found are pointing to malicious URLs. This just gives you a statistic for the malicious URLs that we found for each event. So once we have labeled a data set, what we want to do is to build a machine learning model based on social attributes that were observed from the accounts that were using these malicious URLs and from machine activity that was observed while visiting these URLs. So what we did is, we reopened these websites again in a sandbox environment and observed the entire machine activities that was happening. Machine activities such as the net statistics that was happening, looked at the memory read write operations that were happening, we looked at each file operation that we looked at. There were roughly around 54 attributes that we were monitoring in terms of machine state changes. Whenever you click on the URL and how machine state is changing. So instead of observing for like 10 minutes, we decided the attack would probably happen around 10 seconds. So for every second, we took a snapshot of the machine, seeing like what were the changes happening in that machine itself in terms of these attributes. Then we combined them with social attributes of the account that was posting these tweets. We used this to create a log file, which was used later on to build a machine learning model. So we used one event to train the model. We used a completely different event to test the model. During the training phase, we looked at different machine learning models, see which machine learning model is performing the best, and found that the J40 and XP were performing the best, which gave us roughly around 0.99 F measure at 1 second interaction to the website, 1 second interaction with the URL itself. And while testing the model in a completely unseen data set, the diagram is as follows. What we do is we again reopen the website in a sandbox environment, observe the machine state changes that are happening. So whatever box is created is passed on to the machine learning model, and the machine learning model classifies that you're malicious or benign. So every second it will start calculating the malicious URL is benign or not. So it'll keep on doing for 10 seconds. At any particular point of time, if it points out to be malicious, the system restarts like this is malicious and moves on to the next URL. But if in 10 seconds no malicious activity is observed, the URL is being classified as benign, it keeps on moving forward. So when we tested the data set on completely unseen data set, which was the Olympics data set, we found that the F measure was 0.86 at 5-second interaction, whereas we found an F measure of 0.82 at 1 second interaction itself, which actually, if we could be used in order to kill the connection before the attack happens. So it could be, think of it this way, a flag is raised whenever you're visiting a website and it says like this is probably pointing to malicious URL. Before the attack is actually completed, it could actually kill the connection and start, instead of repairing the system, you could prevent the attack from happening itself. So the other aspect that I wanted to touch upon is we wanted to know why certain posts shared more than the others. Is virality driven by psychological arousal, and do emotion and sentiment to facilitate the post aided in its propagation? For this, so in order to answer these questions, we built statistical models based on the data that we had collected, and we defined parameters. It was size and survival. Size was defined as the number of retweets a post got, and survival represented longevity. It's the time between the first and the last retweet in the same window. So we wanted to see what is making a user retweet these tweets more and more often, and how long these tweets survive. So when you build a statistics model based on identifying the sentiment and the emotion and the social factors, that we looked at how many hashtags were present in a tweet, what kind of followers, what was the number of followers for accounts that were tweeting malicious tweet, what kind of friends that they had. So we found that in terms of content-driven factors, emotion aided a lot into propagation of malicious tweet, especially negative emotions such as fear, which malicious tweets that contain were associated with emotion fear were more likely to be retweeted by 115% and a higher chance of surviving as well. And in terms of social features, we want the more the number of hashtags were present in a malicious tweet, the more likely it was to be retweeted. So in conclusion, what we found was like around 10% of tweets that we captured around almost 40 events pointing to malicious web server, which was as observed by passing through a high interaction honeypot. The predictive model that we built performed with a 0.997 measure during the training phase, and we wanted to test it. An unseen data set, we got an F measure of 0.86 at 5-second interaction, whereas a 0.8 F measure was observed at 1-second interaction. And that's it.
Thank you, Dr. Amir, for joining us. Any questions? I think we don't have any questions, so thank you once again. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Hello. So this brings us to the end of the workshop, almost the end of the workshop. But before that, time to announce the name of the winners in the poster session. I hope you have had a good time today, and you have had time to visit the, look at the posters. So there were around 10 posters, and the posters were evaluated by 3 of our distinguished speakers. And we got the results, so I am announcing the results. So the second runner-up is Pragya.